No worries.
All right, welcome to our fly tying session this evening for the Roanoke, Salem, New River Valley Project Healing Waters Group. My name is Brandon Wells. I am the assistant program lead here. I am joined tonight by many participants of our local program, as well as some from up and down the East Coast. We welcome everybody new and or old, age or attendance. I am happy to be tying the Scud this evening. We are going to hopefully have the program lead join us and talk about the Scud a little bit, but if not, I will do my best to fill you in. I know we have Bob Crawshaw here as well, who could explain things in a pinch. We're also going to hear from one of our veterans, Matt Haig, who will kind of share his story and share what Healing Waters has been for him up until this point. If you want to find the Scud, while Matt's talking, you can gather those materials. Materials are a Scud hook that you're comfortable manipulating. Size 12 to 18 is recommended. Some pretty leggy dubbing if you have some. Shellback, which is basically some thin skin. You can use plastic baggie cut up into thin strips. Have some ribbing, which will be some ultra wire. And then, of course, a little bit of lead weight to bring it on down the water column. I'm off to Matt Haig, who will just fill us in on what his military career looked like and what Healing Waters has done for him. Matt, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Brandon. Matt Haig, I'm a Navy veteran, joined to get some education benefits, and 32 years later, they made me retire. So I kind of stuck around a lot longer than I originally thought I was going to. Moved out here to the Roanoke area because it reminded me of where I grew up in the Catskills of New York, except you don't get snow from November through May down here. So I've been fly fishing probably since I was about 10 years old. My cousin is an avid fly fisher. I grew up fishing, but it was always spin fishing or bait fishing. And my cousin got me into fly fishing, and he'd take me along so my dad would let him use the house up in the Catskills, and we'd go for opening day, which up there it was the 1st of April. And a lot of times we were chipping ice off the rivers almost to fish. I was blessed. My grandfather had property on the headwaters of the Roundout. It was within an hour's drive. You could be on the Beaver Kill or the Esopus. Never did fish the Junction Pool because that was always elbow to elbow, no matter when you tried to do it. But got to fish some really good trout water up there. We moved out here, and I found out about Healing Waters. I was at a luncheon for the Military Officers America Association, MOA, and Bob and Kathy came and gave a presentation. And, Bob said, hey, we're always looking for volunteers and access to water. And my wife was with me because she was interested, and she goes, well, we can do that. And I live up here in Buchanan. I've got the James River in my backyard. Several guys have come up and fished it here. And for me, Healing Waters gave me a great opportunity to be around veterans again and be able to give back. I was looking for something to do. We retired, didn't have any kids. So the college fund went into the bank account, and I was looking for something to do, but really didn't know what. And through Healing Waters, it's really been great. Give me an opportunity to interact. I learned a lot from everybody, whether it's, the experienced guys like Bob and folks like that, or even the junior folks. I mean, going out and just talking to them. When I say junior, I mean new people to the program, and that. So it's been a lot of fun. it's really got me back into fly tying. I really started doing that probably about 10, 15 years ago when I was in Virginia Beach. I was a member of the Virginia Coastal Fly Anglers, and they would have a monthly meeting with fly tying before the meeting. And the best thing about tying flies for saltwater is they're large. So you're not tying a size 18. About a 6 was the smallest, and normally they were a 2 or a 1/0 or a 2/0 because we do a lot of striper fishing down there on the Chesapeake Bay. But it's been a lot of fun. I've met a lot of great people out here, and I really enjoy being able to give back and being part of the organization.
All right, Matt. I appreciate you sharing. I muted everybody just for courtesy to Matt, but feel free to unmute at any point and chime in. I have our program lead, Matt Haig. I'm sorry, good Lord, Fred Paddock. Fred is ready to hopefully fill us in on the Scud as we get things set up here. And I will start talking about it and tying, and Fred will fill in the blanks for me if he doesn't mind. Fred, you with us?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Fred, tell us something about this Scud we're tying tonight.
All right. Well, Scud, some people mistake them as freshwater shrimp, but they are a cousin to the freshwater shrimp, but they are a Scud. They basically like spring creeks and tailwaters and some lakes. They are poor swimmers, but they have a little darting erratic action because they have they can curl and dart. They do like weeds, so that's spring creek water, weed growths. They stay close to that. They like gravelly, rocky bottoms. They are in multiple colors. You could find them in tan, olive, pink. Normally orange means they're dead. And trout will usually use soft takes when fishing Scuds. And then the most important thing about Scuds is that they are light sensitive. So you want to fish them in low light or cloudy days. On bright sunny days, you're not going to be too productive with Scuds.
Nice. Thank you, Fred. That's fantastic information. All right. Well, I'm going to switch cameras.
And another,
Go ahead.
Yes. And you could also fish fly patterns like a waltz worm or besides Scud patterns or the rainbow warrior, just to mix things up a little bit.
Okay.
But they usually like dart. So always feel free to mend with a Scud because that mend will give that little dart, that quick erratic dart, and they give you better line control while you're dead drifting through.
Nice.
So, and then lift at the end or hold tension at the end to lift that fly because it will, simulate it moving. So finish it through the end of the drift before you cast back upstream.
Nice. Thank you very much, Fred.
Yes.
And again, that was Fred Paddock. He's our new but amazingly talented program lead, and we're hoping to pick his brain as much as possible during these meetings. He's got a wealth of knowledge to bring to the table. Hopefully you can see my hook front and center. I've got the macro lens on, and I've tied my thread in. I'm using a light brown to kind of a camel colored thread in a 6/0 or 136 denier. And that is the Scud hook. It is very easy to tell the style of a Scud hook because it's really got a pronounced hump to the shape of the hook shank. A lot of the Scuds have that kind of C pattern. If you do manage to catch one in the wild, they kind of look like just a letter C almost. So this kind of gives us that profile. And I'm going to start tying in the rest of my materials here. I have been asked by more than one person to just take it easy. It is not a race. And so I'm going to dial it back to 1/10 of the velocity. We have nowhere to be. And so try to stay with me, and I will try to keep my pace at a level that's a little bit more user friendly. Again, you're welcome to unmute at any point, chime in, tell us current events, fishing stories, etc. while I tie, and we'll just go from there. There you go.
And one more note, you could there is sow bugs, which is also known as a pill bug, and they are similar to scuds, but they are different, obviously. But they can be fished quite the same, except they are very poor swimmers. So
Okay, nice, thank you. I'm going to put some lead on now. I am of the persuasion that the sooner this little bug gets down below the water surface, the better. So I tie some lead in. Again, it's user preference. Some people don't. Some people do. I do. Hopefully, if you got a kit from our amazing former program lead, now assistant program lead, Kathy, you got a kit, and that kit had some lead wire in it. I'm going to take about 6 wraps on here now to fly down. I typically line that lead up in the center of the hook shank. That'll further assist me in building that profile of a humpback kind of scud. So I leave it right there in the middle, and then we'll build up dubbing and such over it as we continue up the fly. A few light wraps over the lead, and work your thread to the back of the hook. I'm going to go pretty far down the bend of that hook. You can see there, hopefully. Let's see, we got a little chat from Alan here, Carl. To answer your question, I am using a knockoff GoPro. It was about 1/10 of the price of a GoPro, but it functions perfectly for this. And then, Carl, I have put on a lens that kind of turns into a macro. The lens is about 3 inches from the hook right now. So that can be a pain when it comes to swimming that bobbin around, but does give you a pretty great shot of things as we go into the fly time. All right, you can see my thread is way back there in the bend of the hook. And we're going to start tying in our materials. The first material that I'm going to tie in is my ribbing. And the ribbing is going to give us that segmentation that we want. I have copper wire here that came from Kathy, but you can use brass wire, of course, silver wire. There's the wire that Kathy supplied in my kit, which is perfect size. Thank you for that, Kathy. I think I speak for everyone when I say that. I'm going to tie in that wire right behind my lead there with some tight wraps, and then let it hang off the back. Like so. I see quite a few people tying along, and it's great. It's really encouraging to see that. I appreciate you individually and as a whole. I can certainly remember back in the day when there were 4 people on here on Facebook Live. And this is such a refreshing difference from those old days. All right, the next item that's going in is going to be our thin skin. So when this fly is all said and done, we're stretching a slice of thin skin, or if you're into it, you can slice and dice some Mylar tinsel. You can take a sandwich bag and cut that down to size. There are a lot of options for the thin skin. The purpose of thin skin is to give us kind of a shell on the back of this fly. I think there's probably an etymological word like carapace. But we want that hard back with legs kind of dangling down underneath between the shank and the hook point. And so at the end of this fly, we're going to pull that thin skin over everything and give us that nice smooth back. Maybe throw some UV resin on there for good measure. So I'm going to tie that in now and just kind of save it for later. One of the slices of thin skin that Kathy gave us was kind of a brown, speckly situation. I'm going to go with that. Why? Because, well, that's the one that I have closest to me. I also have clear, and I believe she sent another clear, but I like brown right now. Oh,
You're gonna trim it at the top.
I hear you. You got to give me more than 15 seconds. What Mark was trying to say was a tip that I typically share with people, and tonight didn't, was I trim out that tie-in point so that it'll lay real nice when I throw wraps over it. And it's just easier to tie in general. Thank you, Mark. Okay. Now we're going to run our thread back. If you see a massive difference in the profile, you can build that up a little bit, but we're going to be running some real loose dubbing along this hook shank. So you don't need to worry too much about the profile because that dubbing will really build it up. We're going to rake it out. It's going to cover any inconsistencies in your profile of your hook shank. All right, now dubbing. I'm going to use the olive dubbing that came with my kit. You don't want a super fine dubbing with this. You want something that has a little bit of legginess because we're going to be kind of pulling it out and yanking it out the bottom after everything's said and done. And you want some of those fibers to come free and dangle below the hook shank. So if you have a dubbing that is a little more coarse, that is the flavor to use this evening. As you know, it's one direction only for getting that dubbing noodle set up on your thread. I'm gonna try not to hit my camera. And I'm gonna begin wrapping this dubbing forward. Again, don't worry too much about it loosening up. It is all right because we are gonna tease it out at the end. All right, that's looking real good there. Looks messy, but we're gonna clean it up. All right, now, thin skin. If you just lay that on top of the hook and gently pull forward, that's basically what you're gonna end up with, right there. And that's gonna be your shell of sorts for this bug. A trick to tie that down is a very loose wrap initially. That'll help it curve to the dubbing. You don't want it super tight or it'll kind of crimp. Be not exactly preferred in the world of fly tying with these bugs. All right, I'm gonna follow up now with a couple tight wraps for security purposes. Pull back on the excess here and cut it off. You should have one ingredient left, which is going to be your wire. Give a little haircut here so I can see my hook eye. All right, now bringing the wire forward. Before I do that, if you know me, you know I like to put a whip finish in before any of this wrapping forward craziness happens because I've lost enough flies at this point to know that it's a good idea. And now we're going to take very wide wraps coming forward. As we do that, we want these fibers here to be kind of headed down. So you can already see that I'm pulling some fibers loose, and that's going to give us the impression of a leggy underside to this bug. So I'm going to start wrapping my wire. Again, rather wide segments. And as you make it to your thread base, tie that off. The old helicopter trick should work with this copper. There it goes. And we will put a whip finish on here with our little head shape and be done with this fly. All right, now, if you have a dubbing brush, now's the time to get it out. And what does that look like? It could be a piece of Velcro. It could be a dubbing needle that you may have used before to kind of pick some of these fibers out. You have, it could be a toothbrush that's going to pull these out and kind of fray them a bit is what you want to go for. You're not getting any damage. You want to get this feeling of legs underneath, which we're going to then trim with our scissors. Look at that. All right, now, last but certainly not least, the UV resin. If you are lucky enough to have such a thing, a little bit of that now on top makes a ton of sense. You can do a couple coats if you need to get that body looking good. Not a necessary ingredient, but adds a little durability and adds a little shape to the top of this to give it that hump. Got a nice bubble there. There we go. That's about all there is to the Scud.
When do you fish scuds? Summer?
Good
I'll let-
question.
Yeah, go ahead, Fred. That's you.
The
The
best times are spring and fall, but winter year round.
Year round, okay.
Yes, they grow in stages, so they just go from small to bigger in their life cycle. But spring and fall are their most prolific, but you can fish them through year round.
I have a couple questions in the chat as well. Cindy, you're first. The bobbin I'm using is a loon. That right there. It's very ergonomic, but I'm still getting used to the tension. I don't love the tension. It's not like your typical bobbin where you can kind of crank down the tension. This one is more just spring tension. So I've had to bend it a bit and kind of manipulate the arms of the bobbin to get that tension right. But I do like that's a nice feature. Next question was, I believe, from Matt Haig, which said the thickness of the thin skin. Matt, the slices that I use are no more than 1/4 inch for this size. You definitely don't want it to wrap all the way around. So I wouldn't go much thicker than 1/4 inch across, just for kind of that illusion of a shell on top. And then we also had a question from oh no, it's another question from Cindy. Excuse me, Cindy. What is thin skin? It's a flat tie material.
I was gonna say somebody that's really sensitive.
Who has thin skin?
Oh, I knew that part of it. I had not heard of fly tying before.
No, it's a very thin kind of membrane that has a little. So this is kind of what it looks like unmolested, but you can kind of manipulate it, and it's rather forgiving, and you can stretch it out. It's very durable. It's a fly tying membrane that you can buy, and you can probably find much cheaper options than around your house. But it comes in lots of patterns and colors, and it's pretty cool for fly tying. You're trying to give that slick back effect.
So cheaper, like as you said, plastic baggies or something.
Yeah, plastic baggies, not so much, Walmart bag, but something with a little more like a Ziploc.
Mhm.
It has a little more durability to it. Anybody else with questions? I'd love to hear them.
Brandon, one more trick with your bobkin.
Yes, sir.
You could take a thread and wrap it once. You could take your thread and wrap it once around the one leg of your bobkin, and then put it on the spool holder, and that'll give it a little bit more tension.
Okay. I usually do that inadvertently, but you're saying to do it on purpose.
Yes, it'll give a little bit
Okay.
more tension
Yeah.
if you have a soft spring like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's about all I have. I'm going to take the spotlight off because, as you know, I don't do well in it. Anybody else who would like to chime in, you're welcome to do so. If you want to hold your fly up to the screen, love to see that as well. Hopefully the pace of this fly was a bit more appropriate, a little more user-friendly. And if you're the type of person to send pictures in, now's your chance. So we'd love to hit respond to that email you got from me a half hour ago, and we can start collecting some photos.
Hey, Fred, can you one more time when you were talking about the colors? I know you said the orange pretty much means they're dead, but as far as you know, any other pointers on the colors,
Yeah,
like which ones to use or when to use them?
The clearer waters are going to show more of your light pinks or tans, and your muddier waters will show a slightly darker tan and olives. And then the pinks are usually juveniles, and then you'll also, and then it's kind of, it's more of the color of the quality of the water. They do like clean water. Spring creeks, I normally see them in tan, clearish tan to light pink, and the darker waters I usually see the more into the olive colors.
Okay.
All right.
If I was the fish, it would be a tan scud normally, a light tan. But I fish like a Waltz worm is tan, and I fish that as my go-to nymph on most everything. So it's just presentation.
the color of light olive is prevalent where there's a lot of vegetation, and they take on the color of the chlorophyll. And so that light olive, like Mossy Creek, the light olive, God, works great there if you can get it out of the moss after you cast it. And Fred made a good point about them turning orange when they die, because they have iodine in their system. And when they die, the oxygen goes out of their body and the iodine changes their color. And so when you find a small brook where there are no fish, there are thousands and thousands of these scuds. And just downstream of the confluence of this little brook into the river, I'm thinking of Muddy Run up on the 623 portion of
Coming into the Jackson?
Yeah, on the Jackson. Just downstream from where Muddy Run enters, they're feeding on these. And if you catch one of those fish and you eat it, you'll find the flesh is the same color as salmon, because the iodine changed the meat color.
Wow. Mark, what were they hitting up on Buffalo?
Sort of ashamed to say San Juan worm all day long. I mean, it's been raining so much. Guys, one that, hey, Kyle tied it.
All right, San Juan worm strikes again. Flows
Pink and brown, to be honest with you.
under an indicator.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was using I had a like a little pheasant tail and midge. I was also trying to drop off of them, but they didn't really care about those. So I just ended up clipping off and anyway, the worm worked out.
Sounds like it. Excellent. Anybody else been out local that can help us with some tips or tricks right now? Not me. I'll tell you that right now. Not I.
Can you, Bob, can you explain why? I sort of had a feeling that it would be, but I don't really understand why. I went to Buffalo Creek yesterday because I figured with all the rain and everything being pretty much blown out, I had a feeling that Buffalo Creek would still be fishable, which it was. I mean, the water was a little high, but can you maybe explain why that is, or why that was?
Why, what was?
Why when all the other creeks and rivers were really, really high, like
yeah, real easy. Where you're fishing it, that project starts at the confluence of the North and South Fork of Buffalo Creek. And the spring that feeds the North Fork is less than a mile from that, well, a little more than a mile from that confluence. So you're talking about no chance for rain to really flood it out. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, if we were going fishing come hell or high water and it was raining, we would go to Buffalo Creek for that reason. It's less sensitive to what we call a stiff stream. In other words, it takes a lot to flood it out and it clears up very quickly.
That's kind of what I was thinking. And like I said, it was, the holiday yesterday and I had it off. So pretty much I had that exact same, I'm going somewhere. So that seemed like the best bet.
It was.
It worked out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop recording. I believe we've gotten all the good stuff on video.